Brandon. I'm Marie Eliam, and I'm editor of Northeast Ohio Boomer and Beyond magazine. And I'm really excited to welcome someone who is truly an expert in his field and has a lot of information that I think our readers will want to hear about. And it's Brandon Smith, and he is the public affairs specialist in the Cleveland office for the Social Security Administration. And on top of that, Brandon provides blogs for Northeast Ohio Boomer and Beyond, which you can find on our website, northeastohioboomer.com. And welcome, Brandon. We want to pick your brain about Social Security.
Sure. It is an honor and a pleasure to bask in your glow today.
That must be the little light I have on my
the reflection is it's so bright. It's so bright.
That's great. So I have a couple of questions, and we have some questions from readers also. But at what age should I start paying attention to my Social Security statements?
I would say pay attention to them as soon as you either start receiving them or as soon as you enter the workforce. Little bit of a background. We stopped sending out the annual statements for most workers some years ago. Mm-hmm. Now we only send them out automatically for people that are 60 and older. So if someone isn't in his or her 60s yet, they can create what's called a My Social Security account free of charge, which is my favorite cost at our website, socialsecurity.gov/myaccount. You know, you got to give us a little bit of information. You got to be 18. You got to have a domestic mailing address, email address, and of course, a social security number. But once you've created the account, you know, there's nothing wrong if you're in your late 20s, 30s, 40s. Every year or so, just giving your statement a cursory glance, just to make sure that we have the correct earnings information for you. I am not someone that wants to motivate people to do anything out of fear. You know, but let's say you're, halfway down the block and you're on the fence about whether or not you turned off your stove or the iron.
Right.
Is it going to hurt you to turn around if you can to make sure you probably did? And heck, it might have an auto shut off.
Yeah.
But why not err on the side of caution? Right. Same thing with your Social Security statement. It's probably correct, but anytime there's human intervention, mistakes do happen. And I would rather a person see something that could potentially be wrong when he or she is 45. Oh my goodness, my 2017 earnings information is incorrect, but I can still get my hands on that W-2 and correct it, versus when you're in your 60s and there was an incorrect year 25, 30 years ago. Are you going to have that W-2? Is the company still in business? Or are all your files in that one box in the basement where the millipedes are and you never want to go down there?
Right. Well, that raises a question, and bear with me because this probably is a dumb question, because I actually do believe there are dumb questions. So how would I double check that? Is it against my W-2 if I go down on my W-2 and see what Social Security was taken out for a certain year and then check it online? Is that how I do it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, a person has a general idea of how much he or she made, especially if they were an employee. I mean, if you were making $50,000, $60,000 and all of a sudden 1 year shows $6, should, alarm bells should go off. But yeah, you should, if you really want to cross your T's and dot your I's, compare and contrast what we have in our records to what's on your W-2. Now, of course, if you're self-employed, you might have to dig up a little bit more information. Or for the listeners who work outside of the Social Security system, are municipal employees, state, county, village, township, public schools, public libraries. Those years should show up as zeros because they aren't paying into Social Security for those jobs here in Ohio. But were they paying into Medicare? So, like I said, do you need to go over it with a fine-tooth comb? Maybe not. But I would say you have a general idea of how much you were making in a given year. Okay. You just want to make sure there are no inaccuracies.
So what are some of the other bits of information or troubleshooting that someone can do online? And when should someone call your office? or should people never call your
I'll bite my tongue with the answer I was about to give. Online services are always going to be more readily available because you can access them whenever you want to and wherever you are. These days, most of us carry an iPhone or an Android phone. So just, for all intents and purposes, you have a computer with you at all times.
Sure.
Socialsecurity.gov is a great resource for you to get basic information, all of our pamphlets and brochures, fact sheets. They're all available in a PDF version on our website. You can download the audio as well. A person, if he or she is so inclined, they can apply for benefits on our website. Retirement, spousal, disability, Medicare. Both my parents applied online for benefits. They didn't have any hiccups. Now, in fairness, they both waited until their full retirement age. One marriage for both of them, and that was to each other. No minor children, no disabled adult children. Not really. So for the most part, my parents didn't have any issues or hiccups.
Sure.
But everybody's situation is going to be different. Someone may be like you, a highly technical, high-speed internet access, computer program at heart. Some people are much more analog. You might still have that. This is an old joke, but some people still have that VCR that's flashing 12. So
Right.
if that's the case, call us. Toll-free national number is 1-800-772-1213. You can talk to a representative. You can schedule an appointment. You can have some basic questions answered. I would say this: try to get the information that's specific to your situation, or if you're assisting, a family member. Sometimes people want us to be sort of myth dispellers. You were out and about with a friend or a sibling, and you guys got into a heated debate about something. We don't want to be the people that try to pop that balloon of whatever they were talking about during that heated discussion over benefits or eligibility.
Okay.
But we want to answer your questions that will hopefully allow you to make the most informed decision for yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. So speaking of myths, I mean, honestly, everybody's got a take on Social Security, and I'm going to limit our discussion today to benefits for not for disability, but for when you get old enough to file for Social Security.
Retirement benefits, spousal, or age-based benefits. Gotcha.
Age-based benefits. Yeah, that's better way to put that. What are some of the myths or misconceptions people have about that? I mean, what are people, when you're out at when you get to go out again, and people find out you work for Social Security, they go, I got a question for you. Tell me is this true? Or, what are some of those misconceptions that you want to,
Well, I would say that people, and you and I talked about this before we started, that for a lot of people, it isn't something that they think about a lot on a day-to-day basis until they become close to being eligible for the benefit. But that's probably common in a lot of phases of life. Until our children were born, I wasn't scoping out how much diapers and wipes were when I was at my big box store. I think one of the big things is people don't understand that your benefit amount is based on the highest 35 years that you had worked and paid into Social Security. They kind of meld the years in which you need to work and pay into Social Security with how often you have to work under maybe public or private pensions. So it all kind of gets blended into
fuzzy.
one.
Right.
Very fuzzy, like you need some Windex on there. So it's, your benefit amount is based on the highest 35 years of your Social Security covered wages. You need to work and pay into the system for at least 10 years on a part-time basis. The 10-year duration of marriage only applies if you're trying to collect benefits on the record of a divorced spouse. You've got people who say, hey, look, I've been married to Joe. I've been married to Tiffany for 9 years. I'm real close. I'm like, no, in most cases, you only need to be married for a year if they're still alive. It's only 10 years if you're divorced. So it's basic stuff like that. The years in which you need to have obtained for various eligibility reasons is one of the big things people often confuse with us.
Okay. What else do they get confused about?
I think people think that we know more about them than they really do. You've seen a lot of movies. There's a movie, I'm dating myself, but it came out some years ago with Will Smith and Gene Hackman, and Will Smith was constantly being followed around, and various government entities had put stuff in his shoes. They knew everything about him and what he had for breakfast. We don't know anything like that. We don't know what kind of car you drive. We don't know what you have for breakfast. We only know when you were born, what your earnings information is for. So when we're asking you these questions, it's because we're trying to fill in the gaps and see if there's potential eligibility for you or a spouse or a child. Another running joke I often say is people will say, well, all these questions you're asking, isn't that information in the computer? I say, it isn't in this computer.
Yeah,
That's
right.
why we're
Maybe
asking.
somebody's computer has it, but not
Correct.
yours. Right.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I mean, are those the two biggest myths, or is there another one that you really want to hit?
It just varies. I mean, people sometimes, like I said, they assume we know more about them and they don't realize that we really rely upon you to give us a good bit of information. And it's really helpful if the person has his or her information relatively available. So if you're applying for benefits, be it online or over the phone, we need you to be able to tell us about your marriage or marriages. Who are you married to? What's his or her social security number, date of marriage, place of marriage? If the marriage ended, when did it end? If there are any minor disabled children, we need to know about that. We need you to have a general idea of what your work plans are going to be.
Okay.
Because depending on how much money you think you're going to make, that could dictate how many checks we can pay you. And we certainly don't know what your banking information is, so you need to be able to provide us with the routing and account number. So it's much more of a back and forth as far as the conversation goes.
Oh, so I can't just sit down and say, "Okay, I'm ready."
You're not the participant. It's like dancing. Both partners got to be moving in rhythm for everybody to have a good time. Otherwise, we're stepping on toes and it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, maybe I'm a little lazy too, and I don't want to do all that. Well, I mean, in general, and I know I should know this, but when can people, assuming I have my 10 years in and I met all the other marks, at what age can people start collecting or consider filing for Social Security, and how soon ahead of time do they need to do that before they collect a check?
Okay. So for retirement benefits, you have to be at least 62 years old for us to pay you a benefit. You can usually get that ball rolling 3 or 4 months ahead of your 62nd birthday, but that isn't in itself going to speed up when you're going to get your check, because we can't pay you until you're old enough. So here's a good example. Let's say somebody was born in mid-December, and he or she is turning 62 in December 15th. And they opt to apply, say, in September. Okay, cool. We can't pay you for September, October, or November. You're not 62 yet.
Sure.
We can't pay you for December because you aren't 62 the entire month of December.
Ah, okay. All right.
So your month, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but your month of entitlement would be January.
Okay.
Because January would be the first month where from beginning to end, you're 62.
Okay.
But you have to live the entire month, knock on wood, to be eligible for that month's check. So your January payment is going to be made in February.
I see. Okay. So people who are counting
people
on
don't always
that.
know. Yes. They don't always know that the check you receive in a month, it represents the payment for the previous month. So in the month of May, people are getting their April payments because they lived all of April. Now they're getting paid the April check in the month of May. Now, once you've been on Social Security for some time, you're still obviously getting 12 months worth of checks. You're getting a check between January and December, but those payments actually represent your December of the previous year's payment through the November of this year's payment.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So when should I collect it as soon as I can or wait?
Only the man or the woman in the mirror can really, answer
No, I
that.
want you to tell me, Brandon.
No, I mean, there are limits to even my extraordinary genius. The simple truth is, it becomes sort of, sometimes I say it's the balancing scales of justice. Do you want a smaller check sooner? You'll get more checks overall, but you will be locked into a lower rate if you take it early versus waiting until you're older. So if you take it at 62, you'll get more checks than you would have if you waited until 66 or 67, but you're locked into a lower rate.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, do I wait until I'm older? I'll get more money per check, but no matter how long you're going to live, if you wait 4 or 5 or 6 years to start collecting checks, you're going to get fewer checks overall.
Okay.
How long did mom and dad live? What's your health situation looking like? Do you need the money now versus later? Are you a vegan that jogs 5 miles a day, or do you still like your red meat, unfiltered cigarettes? Everybody's circumstances, well, depends on how that steak is cooked, but everybody's circumstances are different.
Sure, I get that. Okay, so you're not in the advice giving.
No.
Okay.
I'm beige. I am Austria, Switzerland. We're
Okay,
neutral. I know. Yeah.
That's what you are. Okay, that's fair. And because I know that's a big question among my friends, and they're, making calculations, and it's kind of like, how lucky do you feel? And
but the thing is, that decision kind of plays itself out with most major decisions as an adult. If you really think about it, the most recent home you're in, it wasn't probably the only house you looked at. You weighed the pros and the cons of a bunch of different places, and you flipped the coin and you decided what was best for you.
Right.
The most recent car, heck, the number of children you had was probably, I don't know, but for us, it was like, okay, we got 2, we got a son or daughter, we're done.
Yeah.
But for some people, maybe you want to have 3 or 4 or 7 or none.
Sure.
It just really depends.
It just depends. Okay. That makes sense. Trying to think, what else didn't I ask you about that you're going to think, gosh, Marie should have asked me about this.
Well, I'll say this, and maybe this is my mindset because my degree is in interpersonal public communication from the University of Akron. I think we get into semantics really with people. So someone may say, well, I'm going to contact Social Security because I want them to help me decide when to take benefits. The way I look at it is, I can help you move. I don't want to, but I can. I can bend at the knees and move that couch. I can't help you decide what house to move into. So I want to maybe set the expectations realistically with the public when it comes to us. The Social Security Administration can answer your questions regarding eligibility. They can take the application for benefits and process it to its completion. They can tell you what documentation or what evidence you would have to show to prove your eligibility. They can't help you decide when you should take your check. We're not financial planners. We're not financial advisors. We're not soothsayers nor fortune tellers. Plus, we don't have the access to know what other forms or streams of income you have.
Sure. Right.
Your stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, mutual funds, pension plans. Now, we do have Social Security retirement planning tools available on our website, socialsecurity.gov. But, we have no idea if you should start investing in cryptocurrency or foreign markets. That's well beyond us. And I want people to be careful when they ask us questions, because as well-meaning as we might be, we could inadvertently answer a question that we probably should respectfully decline even addressing. Taxation questions. Might you have to pay taxes on your benefits? Yes. Should you have a percentage withheld for federal tax purposes? That's on you. So it really depends. We really need to limit the scope of what we're answering to the benefits that we administer as an agency.
Okay, that's fair. And I think that's a good way to conclude this session. I got a lot of terrific information, and honestly, I didn't realize, my takeaways, I didn't realize how much information I needed to have in my hands before I start checking out the website or making a call to one of your helpful representatives there. So that was my main takeaway. And Brandon, I really appreciate everything you do for our readers, your blog posts on northeastohioboomer.com, and for participating in this video interview.
Hey, thank you. Hope maybe this is the beginning of something that we do on a periodic basis. I'll even put on a shirt and tie, even though I'm with my basketball shorts while sitting in my dining room. So yeah, I'd like to do this again. It was fun.
It was. Thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care.
Oh.